The destination is the Pachmari Reserve Forest, about 200 kilometers from Bhopal. At an appropriately chosen point, the vehicle is stopped and the snakes are unloaded. To watch Salim release the rat snakes is an exhilarating sight. The other venomous snakes, like the cobras and the Russell's vipers, are released more cautiously, maintaining the safety of the people around. The beautiful Daboya russelli, or the Russell's viper, is a venomous viper species found throughout the Indian subcontinent. Quite easily one of the most dangerous viperid snakes, it's a member of the Big Four, the group of India's four most dangerous venomous snake species in terms of snakebite mortality. Daboya, the name of its genus, derives from a Hindi word meaning that which lies hid, or the lurker, describing its characteristic sluggishness. The 8 vipers which were being released were true to their name and seemed in no hurry to get away. On the other hand, there were others, like this monitor lizard, who seemed just a little bit overeager to run away to freedom. Watching the snakes in the wild also forced us to confront some hard facts about their present status, which had been revealed to us so far. The Indian Wildlife Protection Act explicitly prohibits the hunting of snakes. However, this protective legislation is irrelevant to the kind of man-snake encounters we had witnessed earlier. For every 100 snakes that were rescued in Bhopal, there were perhaps as many that were killed out of the human instinct for self-preservation. In many other cities of India, which unlike Bhopal, do not have any specialized snake rescue rehabilitation mechanism, the situation is much worse off. While broad policy decisions like regulation of urban growth and habitat conservation were needed to combat this problem, the more immediate concerns were expanding the snake rescue resources and educating the public about the issue. The absence of knowledge about snakes, in fact, has not just harmed the snakes, but has also had its human toll. 50,000 people die every year of snake bites in India, almost as much as the rest of the world put together. Most of these deaths occur because of the long delay in getting the victim proper medical attention. Quite commonly, this delay occurs because of the practice of taking snakebite victims to traditional faith healers or village quacks. Education of the public therefore emerges as an area of immediate concern. Recognizing this fact, the One Vihar National Park has been organizing weekly snake shows at various venues across the city. The primary goal of the snake shows is to equip the audience with the know-how to identify venomous snakes from non-venomous ones.
ये देखिए ये पूरी बत्ती सी है आपने देखा होगा इस करके बीन के ऊपर सुना होगा बीन पे सांप नाचता है बीन से आ जाता है.
Apart from the cobra, which is easily identifiable because of its distinctive thread display, the vipers in the crate are harder to distinguish from the non-venomous species. To address this, Salim demonstrates both the external markers like skin color and patterns, as well as the differences in the nature of the bites.
इससे बड़ा दांत किसी सांप का नहीं होता.
As clearly seen in this female Russell's viper, it is the venom-injecting hollow fangs, characteristic of venomous snakes, that distinguish them from fangless, non-venomous species like the rat snakes.
कान नहीं होते, ये देखता है, सुनता नहीं है.
Special focus is given in these snake shows to educating children, and they've responded extremely well to this initiative.
है ना ये बारी, ये पूरी बत्ती सी.
The treatment of snake bites is the other important issue addressed in the presentation. Refuting all the superstitions about traditional cures by village medicine men, a clear message is sent out. Immediately rush the snake bite victim to the nearest hospital for treatment involving polyvalent antivenom. Finally, it's time for some touching and bonding. The sense of joy and amazement which the children and the adults experience as they hold the snakes in their hands is quite evident.
आराम से नहीं कुछ नहीं है पकड़ो आप कुछ नहीं है ऐसे कुछ नहीं करेगा थोड़ा हाथ उठाएं आप कुछ नहीं अरे आने दे आपको आप आने दे नहीं डरे आप नहीं डरे.
But elsewhere in the city of Bhopal, a much older snake show is on. These are the images and sounds of an ancient India. We, however, encountered them wandering discreetly on the streets of modern-day Bhopal. Putting on the show a captive cobra that seems to dance to his pipe's tune. The sapera moves from house to house, asking his audience for money. For generations, snake charming has been a socially accepted practice of India's sapera community. Traditionally performing the role of snake catchers and snake bite healers, the livelihood of the saperas depended upon building an aura of mystery and danger around the snakes they handled. Not surprisingly, therefore, a lot of the myths and misconceptions about the snakes originated in the strategically mystifying discourses of the saperas. Not very long ago, the sight of a sapera used to be a common one. Now, however, it's much rarer for one simple reason. Snake charming is no longer legal in India. The Wildlife Protection Act of 1972 made the hunting, owning or selling of snakes illegal. In relation to the snake charmers, however, the law was only enforced with rigor in the late 1990s. The perceived persecution has caused much resentment among the sapera community, who view it as an assault upon their traditional occupation.
हमारा धंधा अगर छुड़वा है तो चमार का धंधा है जूते पालिश करने का वो छुड़वा दे तो हम छोड़ दें धोबी का काम कपड़े धोने का वो छुड़वा दे तो हम छोड़ देंगे समझ रहे आप बात को हमारा धंधा कैसे छोड़ दें ये बाप दादों का हाथ का धंधा.
Forced out of the cities by wildlife laws and the coming in of other forms of entertainment, a large part of the sapera community has grudgingly moved on to other occupations. But there is one thing that the saperas absolutely refuse to give up on.
और परंपरा रीति से भोले नाथ ने माला निकाल के दी के जाओ बेटा तुम दर्शन कराना.
The divine right to take live nagas or cobras house to house for being worshipped on the day of Naga Panchami.
इसको जरूर हम दूध पिलवाते हैं नाग पंचमी के दिन ये हमारा फर्ज बनता है सपेरों का. अगर बड़े से बड़े भी अगर हमारे सपेरे हैं ना अगर उनके गाड़ियाँ भी चल रही हैं ना तो वो नाग पंचमी के दिन झोली टांग के जरूर चलेगा. ये वरदान है हमारे. वो अगर पुलिस में बंद करवा दे या जेल में बंद करवा दे नाग पंचमी हम जरूर पुजवाएंगे. वो कुछ भी कर ले जगह जगह यानी स्टॉप पे गाड़ियाँ अगर पुलिस की लगवा दे तो हम नाग पंचमी पुजवाएंगे.
Naga Panchami is the Hindu festival devoted to the worship of the snakes. So an activity that has been illegal for decades across India is restored every year for the period around Naga Panchami.
ये लोग क्या करते हैं ये मंत्र आदि सिद्ध करके या वो जो सर्प की जो विष है उसको पान करके वो सर्पवत बन जाते हैं और उसको पकड़ के उनका सर्प का जो विष का अंश है उसको काट देते हैं और फिर समाज में और उसमें दर्शन के लिए ले जाते हैं.
Rescued from illegality by the annual religious concession, another pitiful spectacle of captive animals being put on a show greets us right in the heart of New Bhopal. In the square in front of a Shiva temple, a sapera is putting on a snake and mongoose fight. The water snake is almost half dead, its body scarred from the brutal handling. However, this mock fight would seem like a harmless amusement in comparison to the cycle of cruelty to the cobra that we were about to discover. The saperas are popularly believed to have magical or divine powers that allow them to catch and control snakes. The real truth, however, is a tale of horrific violence. A couple of weeks before the festival, the saperas hunt for cobras in the jungle surrounding their villages. Once the cobra is caught, it undergoes a brutal operation in order to make it safe for constant handling and public display.
सपेरे क्या करते हैं, ये दांत दोनों जहरीले हैं, इन दांतों को तोड़ दें तो ये दोबारा आ जाएंगे। यहाँ से ये काट के, ये एक जहर की गिरंती होती है जिसे हम पोटली बोलते हैं, थैली बोलते हैं। ये ब्लेड से दोनों नसें काटी और ये थैली निकाल दी। निकालने के बाद 15 दिन भूखा रखते हैं, वो पानी समझ के दूध को पी लेता है। ये उसका जबड़ा पक जाता है। आप उसे छोड़ेंगे जब भी मरना है, नहीं छोड़ेंगे जब भी मरना।
The cobras that are caught are defanged, the venom glands removed, and the mouth sewed up with crude instruments. No tranquilizers or disinfectants are used in the process. Invariably, many snakes die of infection, septic wounds, and excessive bleeding. Those that survive are ready for the worship. A gloomy morning dawns on the day of Nag Panchami. On buses and trains, hundreds of saperas start arriving in Bhopal. Several hundreds have already arrived on the previous evening and are camping near the railway station and the bus depots, waiting for dawn to break. Each of them is carrying at least one defanged cobra caught from the wild. Dividing up the city into neat little territories, they head out with the captive cobras. A distinctive cry pierces the quiet still of the morning. Feed the snake god with milk. The call is made to the devout to come out and pay their respects to the snake gods. What appears to be a colorful spectacle of worship on the outside is in fact an exercise in cruelty towards the snake. The snake has been deliberately starved for weeks so that mad with thirst it laps at the milk being offered to it, mistaking it for water. The milk, which it cannot digest, further infects its wounded mouth. The lidless eyes of the cobra offer it no protection from the dust storm of vermilion and turmeric powder rained on its head. The saperas claim that they released the snake the very next day. The truth, however, is that for several weeks afterwards, they continue to exhibit the snakes and seeking offerings. Only when the snake is so weak that it cannot raise its hood at all is it abandoned in the jungle. A fangless, venomless cobra, dying of infection and starvation, can never survive in the wild. All the snakes that we had seen being worshipped today were already as good as dead. Hundreds of wild cobras had been sacrificed in Bhopal in a single day. Thousands would have been sacrificed in other parts of India. At the end of our journey, we now understood the need and urgency for the expansion of the snake rescue and awareness campaign. Thankfully, our journey to explore the mad snake conflict was not to end on these severely depressing images of the snake's death. Salim had called to inform us that a cobra couple, which was being taken for defanging, had been recovered from a sapera by the Van Vihar authorities. We requested Salim to make a final journey with us to release these cobras in the wild. Perhaps it was our way of reassuring ourselves that there was still a hope for the snakes. The jungle was uncommonly silent. We all seemed to be mourning the cruel sacrifice of the day before. As he let out the snakes, we saw again the shockingly beautiful sight of the snakes in the wild. an image so pure that it could never be destroyed. At least those were our prayers.